Welcome. Am I live? No?
Welcome.
Welcome.
Good evening. Today is April 8th, 2021.
Will,
I'm Aaron Shapiro, and this is Amanda Schaefer.
And today we are having a Q&A discussion on why is my immigration application taking so long, and can you help? My, of course, favorite topic, Aaron. Before we get to the topic, just a quick reminder to everyone out there. If you have any questions, we're going to try to answer them all. Please feel free to ask in Facebook or in YouTube, wherever you're watching from, or Instagram too. I'm monitoring it all. Our contact information will be scrolling across the bottom of the screen this whole time. So if you have anything that you would like to talk to us about, not in a public forum, we're happy to help. That's what we are here for. So we will probably contact you tomorrow, but we will definitely take a look at everything for you. And don't forget to like us and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube so that you don't miss any of our lives. And next week, last announcement, next week, April 14th on Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll be having episode 6 of Are You Smarter Than a Naturalized Citizen? We have 2 more immigration attorneys going head-to-head to see who can ace the naturalization test first. It's a great way to learn about the naturalization test, about the questions on it. So we invite you all to tune in then. Today, we are talking about everybody's favorite topic. It's probably the #1 thing that we answer questions about. Aaron, this was your idea. Why did you think we should talk about this today?
Actually, I thought we should talk about this last week, but in case he's listening, one of our clients had emailed me on the way out the door, and he said, "Do you know what's going on with my wife's case?" And I looked, and they didn't have the receipt notice. And then I checked with the bank, and all the other checks that were sent out around the other filings around that time to USCIS were deposited, but not that. But it means nothing, because it goes to a different office. It's a different thing. It has no relation. Just, you got to be patient. The biggest question is, why is it taking so long? Or what's going on? And maybe we have some answers. Amanda?
Hopefully. Well, what we're going to talk about today is, again, if you have a specific question, we'll try to answer. But otherwise, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk a little bit about one of the reasons why, the biggest reason why your application may take longer than it should is because it wasn't filed correctly. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit. Give you some tips on how to avoid some of these delays. And if you follow us on the social media, you may have seen our Tuesday tips. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today are Tuesday tips. So every Tuesday we have a new tip. You should follow us so you can catch those as well. And then we're going to look at the case processing times on USCIS.gov, explain to you what it means, explain to you what we can do to help in general, what you can do for yourself. And then if we have some time, then we'll talk a little bit about motions to expedite in immigration court, because that's another area where, especially if you're in New York City and the court's been closed for over a year, you're probably wondering, I have family waiting for me, for me to get something granted so they can come to the U.S. or whatever the case may be. There are certain ways to expedite it, so we'll talk about that. And then finally, again, if we have some time left, we don't have a specific time on this, but if you guys are still watching, we can talk about some of our case examples of cases that took a really long time and what we did to resolve the issues. That being said, let's get started. Hi, Vanessa. Thank you for watching. I think she likes the topic. So I'll be very honest. I know I'm biased, but I will tell you the first tip and the most important tip, and really I would argue the only tip you should need, is use a lawyer for the process. If you use a lawyer, chances are you are going to have a much better chance of having your application unnecessarily delayed because of something wrong with the filing. What do I mean? I'm referring to if you've ever gotten a request for evidence, which is when USCIS says, you know, you were supposed to submit this, you didn't. We're giving you like, what, 63 days or something, whatever it is.
84, isn't it?
84, yeah, I knew it was something. That's one example of how you know your application is delayed for some reason when you get a request for evidence, when you don't give all the required evidence. So, you know, that's what lawyers are for. You know, we work very hard. My main goal is to never get things like requests for evidence for clients. I don't like to send things until we have everything because I know how much it can delay it.
It still happens though, all the time.
Right.
Sometimes.
Again, everything that we say here, you know, there's a little asterisk on because this is immigration.
And talking your book.
What?
Said you're talking in your book. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, but even when I've sent them everything, I've gotten requests saying I didn't send them everything. So
yeah.
Like, it happens. But yeah. Giving you tips to.
Those are the craziest ones.
This is the best chance to avoid a delay.
I get a request for evidence, and the response is, look at the thing that you asked for on the request for evidence that is attached to the request to evidence. It's unbelievable.
There's nothing that infuriates me more, honestly, than when they do that. And I'm just like, it's there and we label everything, and which brings me into another filing tip: organization. When you send everything in, you want to make sure it's organized in a manner. And if you go to USCIS.gov, they actually have tips about how they want it organized. And that means that you should, presumably if you follow the tips, it'll make it easier for them to follow everything.
All the tips are super vague and vary, and documents vary from country to country, and nothing matches ever anyway. So it's crazy. So use a lawyer.
That's a guide. I mean, we've been doing it.
They've been difficult lately.
They've been doing
divorces and marriages from other countries.
Well, I'm not even talking about that, but you and I, in the way we file things, have been using the same like organization method now for like over a decade. And you know, it's a good one, but it's still, you know, this is USCIS. You still have to respond to the request for evidence, but you tell them, look, I sent it. Here's a copy of what I said. Done. But if you can give them all the evidence, the right evidence, all the initial evidence that's listed in the form instructions from day one, then presumably you shouldn't get a delay because you didn't submit evidence like that's required. The next thing has to do with filling out the forms.
Yeah.
When you fill out the forms, make sure the information's correct. That's a good start. Make sure you sign and date the forms. That's another good thing to do.
And some of the questions are really poorly worded and don't make any sense, and the instructions don't explain them. So just do your best. So use a lawyer because we've experienced it.
When you are filling out like a marriage-based green card, forms for a marriage-based green card, there's a lot of forms. So
85 pages or something? More? Because during Trump, it was like 100 and something.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Remember? It was like 106 or something, just for the base forms, like just for pieces of different forms, not even for all the forms.
But the point is, it's going to ask for your name like 20 times. Make sure maybe you use different names, which is fine. There's places for other names used, but make sure.
It's fine if it's really your different name.
Well, yes. But make sure, you have
most of the time it's not fine.
It's not yours.
Fraud and misrepresentation, and you have another video.
Okay. But make sure everything is the same. If you say, I lived here from this year, 2019 to 2012, make sure it says that on the next form that asks that. So whenever there's inconsistencies, whether it's spelling, whether it's dates, that can cause security problems. That can cause problems in general.
And the computers catch it now.
Yeah, they
all of it. So you got to make sure everything matches all the way back to when you applied for a visa. So you got to tell the truth at your visa interview.
If your marriage petition says you've only been married once, but
Yeah, this is a common one nowadays. It's not funny.
On your non-immigrant visa application, you put you were married to a different person.
Because they don't tend to give single men visas from a lot of countries. So people get married and come over here, and they think that's a good idea, but it's not.
Oh, we have a question, though. I can't show it because it's showing on one place and not the other. But Vanessa asked, if I have a question about deportation, could I send it in an email, and do you speak Spanish?
You could send it an email, but the Spanish, we're not great with Spanish.
Más o menos.
I don't like tinkering my way through things that I don't know. I mean, realistically, we have clients from so many countries. If you need really a Spanish-speaking lawyer, and if you don't have someone who can help you, you get a translator in theory.
Yeah, we have a lot of clients who don't speak English. Usually, as long as they have somebody. Yeah, they just come with somebody, and it's not a problem.
But no, we're not native Spanish speakers.
But yeah, we're happy to discuss your case, Vanessa. You can send it along. But back to the form. So, this sounds so obvious, when it's said, but you'd be surprised. She said she can translate for her aunt. Fantastic. Then there we go. So yeah, send us an email and we'll get back to you tomorrow. What was I saying? I get distracted.
You're talking about organization and how basically you got to make everything perfect in the forms. You got to make sure that all your forms from all the way up, like if you're doing a green card case, eventually you're going to do a naturalization case, and you might have done a visa case or an H-1B or something before that. You've got the same pieces of information, the same data points for 50 forms for 15 years.
And so I'm very thorough.
This is the reason you really want to use a lawyer, just like you want to use an accountant when you're doing your taxes. You want to have things technically correct. And
I'm incredibly thorough. Like I find things in the form, like differences in different forms that clients give us when I look through files, where I've discovered they had different names they didn't tell us about, or birthdays.
Here's an important one. There's certain data that only the client is going to really notice when they're reviewing forms, like birthdays.
Right. Yes.
Right? So when you review forms, make sure you look at your birthday. No one else other than you, and maybe your spouse, if you're a male, is ever going to notice if your birthday is wrong on a form. So you have to really look. Social security number, birthday, because you could have the wrong client's birthday and you'd never know it if they don't tell you. When you review a form, really review it and really review the birthdays, because that's something that won't pop up.
We do not let clients sign forms unless they tell us they review it. Obviously, I can't force you.
I normally just leave people some time to sit with it for a while and go over it.
Like, because
take it home.
Plenty of clients want to just sign. Yeah, but we won't. But we know that it causes delays. So I mean, obviously we know a lot more about the best ways to file it, because this is what we do every day. But if you have any questions about any others, let us know. But I mean, I think that's enough. That's exciting enough talking about that. Let's move on to I'm sure why a lot of people are here for this topic, which is understanding case processing times. This is what we're going to do here is do that. This is the USCIS website, and basically this is where you go to see the processing time.
It's actually not the USCIS website. That's a page on the USCIS website. You have to go to the USCIS.gov and then click show them. That's where you can show them.
True. All right. So this is USCIS.gov.
Yeah.
Then you go to tools, and then you go to.
There's an easier way.
There's where?
Go back. USCIS.gov. Look at the bottom. It says manage your case.
Oh yeah.
Just click manage your case.
Yeah. Tech processing times. You're right. This thing always changes. I just Googled case processing time. Anyways, so what you do, the way this works is, let's say you put in a form. So a very popular form is a form I-485, or an application for status. Then you click on where your case is. So
it's where you're mailing it to,
or or if you've gotten a transfer notice. Like if you know your case is already at what's it called?
National Visa Center.
Well, no, not the National Visa Center. At like the New York field office or something. Like for waiting for an interview. So I'm putting Vermont Service Center here.
I don't put any weight in these numbers, by the way.
I've learned what they mean, and I'll explain.
Useless number.
So
It's
these
statistic.
Oh, why are they? Oh wait, I don't want this one because I don't want to hear you. Which is the family base goes to what? The I-45s.
What do you mean, like Nebraska or something? Vermont?
Texas.
Depends where the person lives. Texas? I mean, it just depends.
Well, the ones that we send.
We send them all over.
Oh, nope, not into Texas. Whatever, this is fine. Okay, so this is absurd how long the wait times are right now.
They don't seem to take that long.
Well, some do, for sure. Well, these
51 months, but does that include the interviews, this number?
This is from receipt to green card.
Is it? It's not at that office when they do the interview. And, you know, if there's a Stokes.
Then it might just be
what is this number? Like, what is this number? I thought you said you had a class on this number.
Yeah, I know. I could. I'm going to tell you.
What's it called? Case processing time?
Yeah, I can tell you.
Yeah, tell me.
I just wanted to find one that said. All right, whatever. Okay, so 8 months to 25 months is the range, they say. This is for all the categories. If you look down here, they talk about the specific categories. So this one is someone who applied based on based on employment. That person can estimate their range being 12 and a half to 51 and a half months. What the range means is by 12 and a half months after receipt, they've processed at least 50% of applications of that type. It takes them 51 and a half months to process up to 90% of the applications of
These are the dumbest statistics. We've wasted enough time with this number. Okay, folks, nobody cares about these numbers. Next.
Now, more importantly,
that's not how long it takes to get a green card.
These are just what the numbers say. We don't make the numbers.
Are we wasting money on statisticians for this?
I don't know. I doubt it. But
obviously, there's going to be whole departments of people who come up with these bullshit numbers. They probably have to report them back to Congress.
Okay, they actually do. The receipt date for case inquiry, that's what I want to point out next, because that is what matters we're going to talk about shortly, what you do when you think your case is taking so long. And step one is going to this website, putting in your case application number and where your application is, seeing the estimated time range, and then looking here. And when you look on your receipt notice, if you filed an application based on refugee admission for more than a year ago, you cannot even fill out something online to find out what's happening with your case if your receipt notice is not dated on or before March 12th, 2019. So that means if you filed anytime after that and you're waiting and you fill out a case status inquiry online, the system will reject it. Trust me, I have tried many times. So
click the button.
As useless as the numbers under estimated time ranges, what really matters about this page is receipt date for a case inquiry, because that's when you could start the process that we'll talk about in a minute of hounding them. So this is where you start all of that. Okay, that is enough of that excitement. Oh, we got a question here. We applied for our green cards in February 2020. Next country of birth is a long one, but well, this is a lot, Cynthia. Your question actually gets cut off. I don't know if I'll be able to read it all in full later. But we'll send us an email, because it's a little, I can't read the rest of it. Okay, yeah, so we just want to read the rest of that, and then we will definitely try to answer your question. Okay, so that's processing times. What to expect post?
It's processing time. It's going to take a lot longer than you expect. Usually, you file your papers, you're going to get a receipt notice within a couple weeks. If you got fingerprints, you're going to get fingerprints a couple weeks after that. 4 or 5 months down the road, a working permit's going to show up. Social Security comes after that. Green card's going to be later, maybe a year and a half.
Well, you're talking, yeah.
Aaron's averages.
Yeah, but
highly statistical.
I mean, in
based
general,
on years of experience.
In general, for any type of application, even though right now the receipt notices are taking a lot longer, in general, it takes about 3 weeks after you file to get the receipt notice. The biometrics notice, which is your fingerprint notice, comes like a week or a few weeks after that. And then if you need an interview, it'll depends on the application type, but
where you live.
Yeah, and where you live. For marriage-based green cards, if you live in the New York area, New York City area, I would estimate right now about a year to the interview.
Boston was about 8-9 months.
3 months. We've got one in 3 months in Boston.
That's amazing.
Yeah, remember that? I couldn't believe. I was in shock. I was like,
3 months.
We actually, yeah, we got one in 3 months. A green card, not just.
Oh, was it one that didn't need an interview, right?
No, they had an interview.
3 months.
Yeah, it was nuts, and it was during COVID. I don't know how that happened, but they have plenty of immigrants up there.
Maybe.
Maybe. I thought they did in Boston. Okay.
Well, look, Tom Brady left, so
that's true.
Maybe everybody just left. They're like, screw it, we're going to Sarasota.
We have a question from Aurora, who says, is the current timeline for AOS, that's adjustment of status, the same if I already have an I-130 approved, currently under DACA? That's a great question, and the answer is that the timeline is not the same, because it should be quicker, in theory, if you already have an approved I-130, and then apply for adjustment of status. But if you go to the case processing page, you would be looking up the I-485 instead of the I-130, and generally it's quicker because the I-130 is already approved. But you're still waiting for
an interview, and it's going to depend on the local office anyway. So it's no. The answer is we don't know.
In theory, it's supposed to be, but in reality,
office.
Depends on the office. Yeah.
Yeah. Some might not even be open. Some might be fully open.
Yes. All right. Well, help. My case is taking too long. So
I get these calls every day, and it drives me crazy because there's nothing I can do. I feel so powerless.
Well, it's not that we can't do anything. It's just what we can do. We can do a few things, which we'll talk about. But look, we always say we're going to be completely honest with our clients and to anyone turning to us for information. I think it's partly luck of the draw when we send them something and they respond and it speeds it up. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know why it does sometimes and it doesn't other times. I would say it's always worth a try because.
Yeah, I got a nice response back from the asylum office in Long Island recently. They wrote me 2 letters in a month.
Yeah, but and sometimes we write to the asylum
office.
We never hear from them. We've had that happen.
Page office.
Yeah. We have another question.
She runs a really good office there. Oh, who's that? Lee Charm.
I know Lee Charm. Can the petitioner write to USCIS? Oh, I see Lambert. If the letter after an interview says you should hear.
You can.
Yes, you can. I'm gonna talk about at post interview shortly. Hi, Kareen. Thank you for watching. But we're gonna get to that in a minute. But help my case is taking so long. So when your case is taking so long, I already talked about step 1, which is make sure it's actually taking too long in the eyes of USCIS. If it's not outside that case processing time, which right now the numbers, they're quite out there, but they just won't accept anything. So you have to wait.
You mean they won't accept anything?
Case status inquiry online.
Oh, the complaint online. Yeah.
But you can always call them. You can always call.
We don't call them for you to complain.
You don't call
not
them.
asking us to do that. Ain't happening.
Good luck calling them, but you can. You can. Good luck finding a live person there, but you can. Hi, Sherlyn. Thanks for watching. So step one, I guess, after case processing time would be calling them. You can call them anytime you want. Once you're outside of case processing time, that's when a case status inquiry can be submitted. Does it help if you have a lawyer do it? I mean, I think it does.
Probably.
I think if you didn't have a lawyer and now they have to put the lawyer as your attorney of record now, and it's a whole, it definitely brings a case to someone's attention. But again, I've submitted case status inquiries and I've gotten responses the next day, and I've had other ones where I've waited and had to submit second and third ones.
That's ridiculous. They send you a thing back right away that says, thank you for sending. We received it. Here's your number. Expect to hear from you. Can hear from us by, and it's normally like a month out.
Yeah. And
then the only thing you get back in the mail is a letter that says like, someone contacted us. We're working on the case.
Yeah, we're working.
Have a good day.
But
great.
What we're leading you guys down a path here of steps you can take, and usually you have to go more than one step, unfortunately, because the next step, when what Aaron said happens, or when they actually respond, oh, we're just doing security checks or something.
Oh God.
They're always doing security checks on everybody.
Always security checks.
It always is taking too long.
God help you if you got a name that sounds like somebody else's name.
Kareen is asked. Kareen, I see your question. I'm actually getting to that in a second. He's asking if he can file a mandamus if my VAWA becomes out of processing time. We're gonna get to mandamus in a second because it's on this path that we're going down, but it's much further down. So we'll be there in a second.
Does VAWA have processing time? Nah.
I'm not talking. Yes, VAWA has processing time, but I'm not.
Well, like a minimum? Nah.
A minimum.
No, I mean a maximum.
But that's not necessarily what matters for.
Yeah, I guess they have to adjudicate it.
We're going to get to the writ in a second. But, okay. The next step after case inquiries, it's called an ombudsman case assistance request. That is another. So basically, there's a supervisory office at USCIS that when something goes wrong, certain things go wrong, I should say, you can say to them, hey, I need help. They're not doing their job. Can you help me? And then they review it, and they're supposed to get back to you within like 30 days, and then they send you a letter that it's going to be 90 days. But you can't submit the ombudsman request unless you first called them and submitted a case status inquiry, and then that didn't resolve the problem. Yeah, so because there's that, they ask you you actually have to write about it, and when you fill it out, and if you don't say the dates and like there's reference ID numbers, so whenever you call them, write it down. If you don't list those, it'll be rejected by the system. We have another question from Ajiti. Good evening. I was denied my I-45 when I was due and that's for hearing. How soon can I work? Okay, Ajiti, we are not talking about that right now, but I will send you a message after this, and we can talk about that because we just want to stay focused on the topic right now of why my immigration application is taking so long. But I will get back to you on that. If you also want to shoot me an email. Our email address is at the bottom of the screen here. By tomorrow, I will definitely get back to you. So as I was saying, ombudsman case assistance, when that fails, now the next step, you can actually also engage earlier, but I think it's more appropriate at this step, which is your congressional liaison. And what that is that everybody lives in a district and has a representative in Congress. And that representative, and the senators too, actually, your 2 senators for your state, they have a person in their office who's designated as what's called the congressional liaison. That person has a special contact at USCIS that we don't have privilege of having, who only deals with congressmen, their people. And if you live in their district, you can send them, an email saying, hey, my case is taking too long. It's outside processing times. Can you please help me? And what they then do is contact USCIS. And it does depend on who your congressperson is. I've heard mixed things. Every time we've contacted somebody, we've heard back very quickly. But, if you have a congressperson who's not, that happy about helping immigrants, then you might not hear an answer so quickly. I've heard people not get responses. So it might depend on where you live. But again, it's going to be a necessary step for the last thing we're going to talk about in this long line. And it's definitely worth a try because it doesn't hurt. Ali Zahara would like to know when is a good time to contact us for an RFE. Ali, that would be as soon as possible. So tomorrow morning, that would be a great time because if you have an RFE, that means there's a clock on it. So the sooner, the better. And then the last step is, well, hopefully the last step.
What's that?
It's called a writ of mandamus. And what that is suing the federal government for not doing their job. And if you, and what type of application, there's different rules about it. But
Man, I think your internet's messed up.
All right, one sec. Let me switch. Am I back? You're back. You're okay. All right. So for the writ of mandamus, like I said, you're suing the federal government. Depending on, there are certain applications that writs are, I would say, easier for, like an N-400 for naturalization. The law actually says that I think it's 90 days after the interview that they have to make a decision. We're getting an echo now.
No, it's pronounced mandamus.
Oh, you're laughing at me for my mispronunciation.
Well, first I Googled it, and then I'm laughing at you.
Okay. The writ is don't make me laugh. If you're filing an M-400, like I said, that's clear. And the I-751s are similar. I-130s don't have there are other applications that don't have a specific time limit. So the law doesn't say to the government, you have to decide this within this amount of time. Now, if you're watching this, and Sherilyn's laughing at me too now, and
laughing at you.
That's okay. I could take it. Well, it's distracting me though. Oh yeah. So you might be watching this and being like, I filed for naturalization and it's been 8 months and they haven't made a decision. That's very possible. Like I said, the law may say one thing, but it gives you the grounds to file a lawsuit. It doesn't mean that it's realistic they're going to do it in 90 days. Writs are complicated. It's not so simple that it's been taking a long time. You can sue them. And they're expensive because...
And it could mess up the government by creating needless litigation.
Well, actually, thank you, Aggie. She said, great information. Well, I'm not worried about messing up the government.
I'm saying, but it could force them to change too. So maybe everyone should hire a lot of these.
Oh, I'll leave.
A whole team of people sitting at tables and sell them.
Oh, you have to give. Sometimes it says on there how long, like 60 days or something.
What?
I think it usually says on the RFEs like that you should have a decision within 60 days. So then
ignore those numbers. They mean nothing.
No, but if you can, you're allowed to contact them after that. That's all. They're not deciding things in 60 days, but unless you're lucky.
Depends. I mean, we get a lot of stuff decided. I mean,
Yeah.
All
So
the
yeah.
time. All the time. That's what I'm saying. I see these numbers they put out that are horribly long, and I'm like, they're not that bad.
Right, but I'm saying if
They don't seem as long as these numbers you were saying before.
Basically, if you tried to send them a letter before 60 days, I'm pretty sure they're just throwing it in the garbage. You send it after 60 days, they're obliged to give you a reply. However, they don't always. And he's
Yeah, you're like, what? But they don't always. Okay. The answer is we don't know. It's going to take twice as long as you think it is. That's
right. Well, yeah. I mean,
I always tell people it's going to end up costing twice as much as you think, and it's going to end up taking twice as long.
Yeah. So anyway, so the way the writs work is when they're done correctly, at least, even though they're a federal lawsuit, you're filing a summons and complaint against the federal government, and basically, when we do them, the only times we've done them, we've only had the same result, which is like the next day that after being served with the law, they adjudicate the application. So they're very powerful, but if you don't follow all those steps I talked about before this,
it's procedurally not possible.
Your lawsuit will be dismissed. It won't work. It'll cost a lot of money and it won't work. So we actually get a lot of calls from people asking us if they can file a writ, that they believe they're eligible to file a writ. So we go through the steps with them. Have you done this? Have you done this? And if they haven't, we tell them, look, you
got to do
this. Call us back if you're still waiting. And then, I can't click this question. Kareen's question: can I file a mandamus if why have you never corrected me before? I've always said that. I don't know why. I really
mandamus.
I thought it was cute. Just funny.
Okay. Well, way to in public make fun, point it out finally. Hey, Manuel.
I wasn't sure either, because I think I had a professor in law school that said it wrong, and then I always thought it was like, is that right? Because I always heard
I hope I am right and you're wrong. But
well, I Googled it.
Okay.
Mandamus.
Wait, I lost the question about. So with VAWA, I would have. I know I've actually looked at this. I can't.
How long do they take? 2.5 years.
No, that's not what he's asking. He was asking, even though this is all messed up, I can't read it. You can't see the comment. It's on Facebook. It didn't show up here for some reason. But the question was about.
I see. I didn't know there were comments on here. Look at all these people.
Who do you think I'm making things up?
No, I didn't know I could see them. Go on. You go.
For VAWA, I have to check if you can file a writ for a minute.
We applied for the green card. Oh, we already answered those.
Sherland asks, do you think there will be a more speedy processing time with the new administration?
Nothing.
They're trying, but it wasn't really great under Obama. It did get a lot worse under Trump.
Did it?
So I think so.
I don't know. It got harder. We had to produce more stuff.
But then we also at times sped things up randomly. So
I was going to say, I don't think that it was so bad under Trump.
I mean, well,
I generally am impressed with immigration. They make some silly mistakes and stuff once in a while, but they try.
All right. Anyways, we don't need to praise them. There's plenty they can fix.
It's not their fault though. It's the government. They're just workers. They're just lawyers and stuff who work for the government.
I know. Anyways, so Kareen, I have to double check on that. But even if you can for a VAWA, the question would be if you did all those other steps first. Otherwise, you can't. All right. Let's keep going. So again, those are the basic steps. Sometimes I write multiple letters. Sometimes I do multiple case status inquiries. I also, when clients call us, I try to compare it to cases that we filed in the same place around the same time. So I'm more concerned if I file two on the same day and one's done and the 6 months later the other's still pending. But there could be a reason. So everybody's case is different, and that's also really, really important to keep in mind. Do you want to talk about the asylum backlog real quick, Aaron? Just to explain.
Yeah, sure. Asylum backlog is really bad. In February of 2018, Donald Trump, our supreme leader, in all of his infinite wisdom, decided.
Our former.
decided that asylum was taking a long time, and he's right. But there was also decided that there was a lot of abuse because people would apply for asylum, wait 180 days, apply for a working permit. And especially at the southern border, they'd have unbelievable amounts of asylum applications. And these people, every asylum applicant gets scheduled for an interview. But what was happening, they noticed, or they reported to us, which we don't really know, is that people would be applying for asylum on huge numbers, getting released, coming in, getting a working permit, and just disappearing and never showing up for their interview 4 years later or something crazy, right?
It wasn't as many as they actually made.
Well, whatever, but that's the theory behind it.
That's the theory.
So, this is the theory. So then they decided that they were going to put an end to it in February of 2018. And they said that from this date forward, every asylum application has to get, here's the scheduling order for who's going to get an interview. First, it was like people who had applications that were scheduled already or rescheduled like during that time. The second was, I believe it was, there was some unique case, but the crux of the thing was, if you file an application from that date, you were going to have your interview within 21 days. And then they would go down the backlog from most recent to out, right? So there's certain people who are waiting still who have applications 2015, 2016. I'm sure there's 2014. And then you get COVID and there was no interviews for a while. And now when you go to the interviews, it's just empty waiting room. It's like the waiting rooms have social distancing. So they're not scheduling so many interviews. They're just doing very few. And then compound the fact that they cut the budget for the asylum offices huge, bigly, back in like October, November last year, remember?
Yeah.
So they cut off, I think, 75% of the jobs or something. So it's some huge number of asylum officers were furloughed. So basically, there's a monster of a backlog. So if you apply for asylum, you're going to be waiting. They changed the rules on the working permit a little bit. What is it, 360 days now?
365.
365 on an initial, unless you can prove something.
Wait, hold on, Aaron. We have a quick question from Instagram. How long does it take for biometrics to be scheduled after I received an I-797 notice of action letter for my adjustment of status application? Thank you.
2-3 weeks.
About it normally, but right now, everybody, I'm speaking to the lawyers across the country who are all saying it's taken, people have been waiting a month and a half for receipt notices. So the one thing we always do is check if the check is deposited.
That's
Obviously,
what I always do when it gets weird. I check the check. But that's before the initial 797. Once you get the first one, you know.
I'm thinking of the receipt notice. I'm sorry. Yeah, the biometric should be about 2 to 3 weeks after the receipt notice. But usually if you check your case status online, it tells you they sent out a biometrics notice. If it doesn't, they probably didn't and you didn't miss it. But you can always,
listen to this, right? USCIS offices all over the country are struggling with the backlog that was created by nearly 4 months of agency closure. Biometrics appointments are usually held at application support centers, which are located all over the country. Between March and June, nearly 300,000 ASC appointments were canceled. And today there's 1.3 million people who are waiting for their biometrics appointment. Even now, approximately 6 months after reopening in centers, ASC operations are only functioning at 65% of their pre-COVID levels. So when you do that math, it's basically like a nuclear bomb of backlog.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Oh my God. And it's compound. It's just, if they're only running at 65%, but they have to operate at like 500% or something stupid like that, it's crazy. I'm amazed how well they are functioning.
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's probably regional too.
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay.
I'll bet you the other thing to think about though, remember, historically, if someone gets an interview for biometrics, they could show up like before it. You know, people did that for a long, long time. I'll bet you now with Corona, they're not letting you in the building unless you have the appointment at that date and time. So it's going to change things too. My
fiance was detained, applied for asylum, got an interview within a week last month.
All right.
Well, when you're detained, it does go faster.
That's completely different.
Yeah, you can't. It's a different timeline altogether because the cost of government a lot of money every day they keep somebody detained, and there's also like.
That's a very, very different case.
constitutional issues with someone detained.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's different. But yes, that's one way to speed up your case. Get detained.
Don't do that.
I don't recommend it.
It's not legal advice. She's not your lawyer, unless she's your lawyer.
Yeah,
that happens.
Yeah. Well, because of COVID.
Also, because sometimes they don't want to transfer prisoners. That's the real answer. They're cheap.
Usually
that stuff happens, and the Constitution says it's okay.
Vanessa wants to know if she can expedite her work permit in I-131 without biometrics. Well, there are ways you can. That's one of our topics. We'll talk about.
Not biometrics.
Not biometrics. The work permit in I-131.
How can you expedite a work permit?
She's asking if you can expedite. Not that. Oh, yeah, work permit you can. I meant the I-131.
Travel doc? Can you expedite a travel doc?
You know you can, but very.
That's like an emergency or something.
I know we're not talking about that yet.
No.
I'm just saying her question is, can she do an expedite at all without doing her biometrics first? And the answer is no. You're going to have to do your biometrics first.
That's the issue with the travel. Yeah, because someone has to leave. Yeah, we've had that. We've had that problem before.
We'll get to that very shortly. Very shortly, I promise. Because first I want to talk about post-interview decision. Why am I still waiting? And I know we had a question about that I said I'd get back to. Can the petitioner write to USCIS if the letter after an interview says you should hear in 20 days, but years after you're still waiting? Of course.
Do it.
Why are you still waiting? Well, it depends. There's many different reasons why you can still waiting. The number one reason I tend to find after a marriage interview that somebody's still waiting is because they're scheduling you for a second interview. Or
they're looking in the validity of documents that were from your home country.
That's another reason. Yep.
Looking at a visa application they got to find in a time when maybe it wasn't filed on a computer system. I-94 issues. There's a lot of things.
Yeah, there's a lot so much. And a lot. Usually when you ask them, they either tell you they're waiting to interview you again, or they're doing background checks or something. When you can get them to answer you, they say 120 days, so you don't start bothering them before then, but they're not very quick usually to respond to those things. And, I've had plenty of clients go to interviews and, it was quickly approved, like they got their green card the next week. And then I've had just as many, if not more, wait years after the interview for no reason except, like, we got an interview notice for someone today to do a Stokes that we filed his in like 2017. Was it 2018?
I think so.
And this is a second interview, but I mean, I feel like with him, it's been taking forever. And they have, other than them investigating the marriage, they haven't given us a reason why, and putting him in the line.
No idea.
The Stokes interview, the second interview for marriage interviews, can take hours. So
or 15 minutes.
What?
Or it could be quick.
Usually they're not that quick.
You just don't know.
Well, the ones I've never gone to a quick Stokes.
I have. And I heard of someone who had a quick Stokes. One of our clients recently, very quick one.
But that wasn't actually a Stokes.
It was scheduled as a Stokes.
I know it was scheduled. I know I was supposed to be on the phone for that one.
Yep.
And she's like, "Oh no, they just said I need the medical exam," and I was like, "What? That's awesome." But usually they're longer, and they plan for them to be longer. So, and now with COVID, the delays are even worse. So keep that in mind. Because they can't have, though I've heard 26 Federal Plaza is pretty packed, they're not supposed to have that many people in the room at once. And for the past year, and the offices closed for a while. So basically, if you're waiting after your interview for a decision or for another interview, it's been way longer than the 120 days they say on the paper, we can reach out to USCIS and ask them what's going on. Like I said, we've had mixed results. I've done it, and then we've gotten an answer the next day, or an interview notice the next day.
We don't hear ever back.
And then sometimes they just don't respond, or they say, "Oh, we're working on it." And then 3 months later, I send another one. We're working on it. You want to keep your case in their mind the best you can, that's really all you can do. But what's that? What's behind you? What's going on? There's a ghost.
It's your sister.
Oh, she's really white. It looks like a ghost.
Really?
Wow, Amanda.
Just kidding.
Yeah. Yellow shirt.
Looks like a ghost.
Anyways,
We're running on the internet. I'd come up with so many jokes.
well, we are. So we'll. I was a bad joke. We'll move on. Sherilyn likes it though. That's all that matters.
It's a good joke.
So yeah, if you're waiting,
Unfortunate in our times that you can't have jokes sometimes.
yes. If you're still waiting after your interview, like I said, it doesn't hurt to try to reach out. But sometimes if you still says pending, it's just, this, you just gotta wait. That's a lesson I think everyone should.
You call me every 2 months and we talk for a minute and then you'll feel better and everything's okay. It's okay.
And then we'll talk in 3 more months, That like
you'll know when we know. That's the real answer.
But also it's important to stay on top of everything to make sure, like I say, they don't forget about you, or lose your file or something. We've seen that happen.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about that, one of those cases, in a little. But first, I think this is an important topic too, especially since New York courts have been closed now for over a year. And I was on a call recently with the chief administrative judge in the New York City immigration courts, and she does not expect the immigration courts to be open in New York City before the end of the summer, possibly the end of the year, which is,
I imagine, because they need to have a broad-based vaccine.
Insane how long that will be. And I mean, I can't tell you how many cases we've had rescheduled multiple times already for clients. I
had a guy in the office today. His case was scheduled from April something. He was coming in to hire us, and then we looked and it was already scheduled for June something. And I told him, don't hire me now. Call me in a month in May. Call me in mid-May. We'll look again. I don't want you to hire us now.
Yeah, because they're telling us about a month in advance now if courts still postpone. But Newark is open.
Yeah, it's annoying, right?
Philly's open. Basically, detained cases are still going forward, of course. Basically, I don't want to say every court but New York, because I know there are some still closed, but most of the courts are still open, but not New York City. So what do we mean by a motion to expedite? So there are...
Yeah, what do you mean by that in the time of courts not open?
Well, for the courts that are open, and then when the courts reopen, and it's not that you can still file stuff with the courts right now. So you could file your motion to expedite, but it might not get granted until the courts reopen.
Motion to set it on fire, throw it in the fireplace.
Basically, there's really only a few situations that they will actually expedite your case, no matter what type of case you have. We had it done for a case once that, this is a great example of when they actually do it, for a cancellation of removal case where the qualifying relative had cerebral palsy, autism, like severe autism, like just a lot of different illnesses. And he was a teenager, and the mom was applying for cancellation. And because of how extreme and unusual the hardship was in that case, the judge agreed to give us the earliest possible date, but we had to write a motion to expedite first, and explain how, like, this case is basically, the case was so strong. Why is she waiting? She becoming a permanent resident does give you certain advantages and opportunities. So they agreed to do it. They gave us the early possible date, which I think at the time was 6 months out. And then they didn't explain. We got a new notice, a new hearing notice, like I think 8 or 10 months later. So like that was a case that they agreed to expedite. The closest they could do it was, I think, 6 months, and then without having to give us a reason, it was rescheduled for a later date, which I couldn't explain to you why. But I've had motions to expedite granted when you could prove that in general, when you can prove that there's some type of hardship, like, and it has to be extreme, that you or a U.S. citizen or permanent resident family member is going to face because of you having to wait. And
there's another one too. When you're done, well, I don't interrupt you, but
no, go ahead.
So this is one that we used to do a lot. If you have a 485 case, an adjustment in front of the judge, and basically there's nothing else wrong with your case, it's just that you need to adjust in front of the judge because you're in proceedings. You can a lot of times agree with the trial attorney to get your case scheduled some morning. Like they'll do a case like at 8:30. If they have a 9 o'clock individual hearing, they'll throw you in at 8:30 because it's going to be really quick. So you can ask the judge to do that too.
Yeah, that
helps everybody.
But that you don't really need a motion for. You're not.
You might.
Yeah, maybe.
Absolutely might need a motion. Otherwise, you can't get a ruling.
But yeah, in general, it's, you know, they don't grant them so freely because so many people are waiting for so long, and I'm sure it'll be even harder once New York.
Oh, it's gonna be ridiculous. We're gonna retire.
We have a client. We had a client today who she was looked like she was going to be one of the lucky ones in that when she applied for asylum, that was when they were scheduling people right away, and she was supposed to have her, Lisa said she sent us an email. We will definitely check that email, Lisa, and get back to you tomorrow. So she thought her case, like she was going to have a decision, and she has a strong case in February 2020. That was when her case was initially scheduled, and then COVID hit, it got canceled. So they rescheduled her now. She's already been rescheduled 3 times, and her family's back in her country, and they're not safe for the same reason she wasn't safe, and she fled her country. And if she gets granted asylum, then she can file for her husband and her daughter to come over here as follow to join, it's called. But until she's granted, they can't. They're stuck there. So she was asking us today, what can I do to get them over here? And unfortunately, the options aren't really that great. There's only really one option that we don't have much faith in, but you know, in a situation like that, you do whatever you can, you try. But basically the only option is to apply for humanitarian parole by showing how much in danger their life is going to be, because her case is next February 2022. I'm assuming the court will be open by then, but even if we could file to speed up her case, A, the courts aren't open, and B, by the time they open, we're not even getting a decision on that type of motion before February. You know, realistically, let's say they open in June, you know, it could take them months to decide one of these. So
who's opening in June?
I said, let's say.
They're not opening in June.
I'm not saying they're opening. I'm saying
it's gonna be a nice summer. No more corona, no immigration court.
I picked June. I picked June as
September court. Come on.
As a very generous opening.
I think they're not doing it so they don't have to deport anybody, and it's a way around immigration reform. It's a political move. That's what I think.
Well, whatever. We're not here to talk politics.
I am. Why not? Everyone has to talk about whatever we want to talk about.
Well, I'm not here to talk politics. I'm here to help people with their cases and stuff. That we could talk about politics another time. That's fine. So yes, that's about speeding up things that are in immigration court. So as I was saying, the humanitarian parole is the only possible option, but Aaron left because, yes.
Possible option for what?
For the situation I just described, for a client whose family is stuck in the country for the same reason that she had to flee her country. They're in danger and they can't get over here.
I don't think they're going to let them in.
I don't either.
The reason is simple. With parole, I think you need to show that they're going to come in and go back.
Not in every situation. I've seen situations where you can do something like this, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, you said because there are riders on there, so maybe. That's interesting. I don't know though. Doesn't feel very good.
Well, they're technically not yet, so.
Exactly.
No, I said they can be paroled pending her court date, and if she does, like, basically, right. Because we'll talk about this later. Can be added. That's why. All right. So, can I speed up my application? So this is going back to USCIS. We're out of immigration court now. The answer in general is no. Well, hold on. there's something called premium processing, but that is only for certain types of applications. They're generally speaking the employment-based applications. And you pay $2,500, I think, and they have to make a decision or issue a request for evidence within 15 days. That is the quickest time frame possible. Other than premium processing, which is not available for things like asylum or family-based immigration cases or work permits or travel documents or DACA or TPS. So none of those can you file for premium processing for. Unfortunately, it's just not allowed. But is there any other way to speed up your application? Certain applications, if you have a good enough reason, it's possible, but not a guarantee. So a travel document is a good example of one where you can ask them to expedite. And
like a sick relative or something.
Right. So like if somebody's, unfortunately dying, abroad, and when you provide that proof, then you file the application, then you have to get an info pass appointment, which.
Yeah. And you show that it was filed and so get it adjudicated right away, right?
For them the proof. Yeah. Which
is probably extremely difficult right now.
Exactly. But
it's info pass appointment rules.
Right. It is a possibility. We've technically
done it.
Yeah, there are other times where like a family-based petition can be improved, but again, it's usually quicker. It's usually in a situation where there's some type of sickness or like surgery that's needed, or there's some good cause. Oh, and with the travel documents, also another reason is if you have a work-related reason, sometimes they will speed it up too. It's the same process. You file it, then you make the info pass, you show them the proof, you file it with the proof, show them the proof, and hopefully they do it. But you can't put all your eggs in one basket with that, because there's a chance you won't even get a live person when you try to make an info pass appointment on the phone.
Well, you call, then they have to call you.
Yeah.
Days, I believe.
Kareem is asking if he can speed up his VAWA case. Like I said, you have to have a really good reason, which falls under very narrow categories. But like if you need to get granted for a certain reason sooner rather than later, which I can't think of a good reason off the top of my head. But generally speaking, no. And then Sam is saying, how about my case? Hopefully done this year. Sam, I hope so too. But the courts have to reopen first in order for your case to be done. But fingers crossed, Sam. I'm with you. We're waiting to finish the other half of his case, which is infuriating. So that's really the only times you can speed up your application processing. Like I said, if you have a good enough reason and I would suggest having a lawyer help you with it. We'll tell you very bluntly, yes, that's a good reason, or no, that's not. Don't waste your money. If we think it can work.
If we think it's not going to work, we won't. We won't take your money.
Right. Because that's.
I'm not interested in you complaining about it down the road.
Yeah, because we know we have a pretty good idea. We can't, and we'll be very clear. Like, we can't promise you. Like, we've had clients say, say, look, we don't think this is going to work, and they're like, no, but I want you to try. We're like, okay, as long as we don't think.
Sometimes it works.
And sometimes it works.
I know you get a lot of positive surprises.
We're usually pretty on point with if it's going to work or not. But it's your case, and if we're just trying to save you some money if we really don't think it's going to work. But if you want to try it, we can try it, of course. And then Aaron. We've already been talking for an hour here, so we'll get.
I don't have anything else to say. It's going to take twice as long as you think. That's immigration. I
guess then the better.
That should be on their letterhead. USCIS taking twice as long since 1776, whenever the hell they invented it.
Yeah.
1996 or whatever.
Basically this entire topic is not the most exciting. It's one of my honestly least favorite topics, just because
But it's real.
I get so frustrated that I can't answer these questions for people. Like, what's going on? I don't know. I don't work for USCIS. I can only try to do things that I know I'm told are supposed to help. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And I can't tell you why they do in one case and not in another case. All I can tell you is you're dealing with a big bureaucratic machine, and you kind of just have to keep poking it to get it sometimes to work properly. But it's a really important topic because it really is something that so many of you out there are dealing with. And it like I said, it consumes so much of my time. But we understand your frustration, because it's our frustration too. Go New York, go America.
Cagambega. I know some Cagambegas.
Yeah, that you know Lambert.
Oh, what's a Passam Day?
I don't know what a Passam Day is.
Oh, that's Lambert, my man.
Yeah. He's a big fan. He's a good guy.
What's Passam Day?
I don't know what Passam Day is. You
Sounds like a dessert, doesn't it?
Sure. So anyways, if you have any shut up, Aaron.
Mandamus.
If you have any other questions that we haven't answered, including Cynthia, we weren't able to answer your long question because it got cut off. Send us an email, like I said, bottom of your screen, or you can call us tomorrow, or next week, whenever. We're around. We're here for you. We'll be happy to answer your question, and we're if you would like to hire us to try to reach out to USCIS to find out what's going on with your case, we're happy to do so. We, like I said, we will not do it if there's absolutely no reason or it's not time. But if you're outside the processing time, we're going to do what we can to try to get you answers. Just be forewarned that we can't promise you answers. We can't guarantee you answers, and we can't guarantee you how long it will take to get answers, but we could do our best to get them. And generally, it's his father's name, Aaron. There you go.
Oh. I should have known that, right? Jeez.
Probably.
See, check your forms.
Say check your forms. I would feel like I don't know, that one I would have remembered. It was no.
Mandamus.
Shut up.
Mandamus.
Okay.
Mandamus.
I'm gonna find something that says it the way I pronounced it is right too, just to show you. But remember, I think the most important thing about all of this, when you're dealing with USCIS, is just have patience, because otherwise you're gonna stress yourself out, punch Aaron in the face.
Bonne nuit.
What?
That means good night in French.
Okay. Stop pressing things.
I like it.
All right. Anyways, Aaron's past his bedtime, so we'll let him go. But no, just have patience. Know, like Aaron said, it's going to take twice as long as you think. Don't be surprised. Start with a lawyer.
Just start earlier.
Talk to a lawyer before you file anything. If you talk to a lawyer before you file anything, then you have your best chance of getting things completed as quickly as possible. And anyone who promises you it can be completed in a certain amount of time is lying, because nobody can make you that promise. Anything else to add, Aaron?
Nope.
All right. Well, before we get going, again, make sure you like us and follow us on Facebook and YouTube and all that lovely stuff, Twitter. And Sherilyn says Aaron's messing with me. I know.
Bonne nuit.
Shut up. If you didn't know this, by the way, Aaron's my brother-in-law, so that's why I'm yelling at him to shut up. Because he likes to mess with me. But anyways, so like us, follow us, whatever. Next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Tune in for Are You Smarter Than Naturalized Citizen, episode 6, our game show where we will see who can ace the naturalization test first. We invite you all to join, especially if you're studying for your naturalization test. It's a great way to learn the questions on there. And we hope that all of you found this to be helpful. And again, you know, don't be shy. We're here for you. And we will be back soon, probably in 2 weeks, with another question and answer session on a different topic.
Send a topic idea if you have any good ideas, people.
Yeah, we're open to topic ideas as well. Otherwise, we'll pick another exciting one like this. But I think this one people will find helpful, just because you know, everyone has these questions.
Yeah, everybody.
Anyways, thank you all for watching and have a great night.
Bonne nuit tout le monde.